All right, I know I was doing some bragging on our crop tour video about some potentially eye-popping full season soybean numbers, like numbers that are inconceivable. So anyway, it's that time. We're already over here, fueled, greased, ready to go. Let's get some of these soybeans, see what they're gonna look like. All right, guys, if y'all remember from my crop tour video there, we went out in soybean field and pulled 3 random plants, pulled all the pods off each of those plants and figured up how many actual soybeans was on each plant, and then figured an average of 100,000 plants per acre, but 3,000 seeds per pound. And anyway, our yield estimate was, I think, 240 bushels an acre, just something just completely mind-blowing. And normally when I do yield estimates on soybeans, the true yield is somewhere around half of what my yield estimate is. But even if that is actually the case, I mean, we're talking 120 bushel soybeans. Now, again, I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think I've got my best soybean crop ever. I think there is a chance that we may see 100 bushels an acre. Maybe not for a field average, but I definitely expect it to see it over here on the yield monitor in quite a few places in the field. So it's time to see what it's going to do. Now, out of our full season beans, I expect this farm to be our worst farm. As you can see, I mean, a lot of places around the edges it's kind of thin, got some grassy areas and weeds. Out in the middle it's going to be real good, but we got 2 other farms that I expect them just to be absolutely mind-blowing. I think these are going to be real good. I fully expect these to be, 60 to 70 bushels an acre field average, with some really high spots out in the middle, but we're going to find out. Let's slow that reel down a little bit. I don't want to beat all the beans out of the pods because they're a little past the ideal time to cut. They've been ready for a little while, but we had a late corn crop to get out because it was planted late, and also had our cover crops to plant, so these really probably should have been cut at least a week ago. But based upon what we've already cut, Carter and I did some custom cutting for a neighbor yesterday, about 25 acres. Yield on them was fantastic, but we had a fantastic sample. Normally with full season beans, we still got a few green pods out there that just don't want to mature and thresh out. It kind of gives us a dirty grain tank sample. But this year, it looks like they're plumb ready to get. They hadn't started popping out yet, which is a good thing because we definitely don't want to lose any yield, but I sure don't want to leave them in the field any longer than what we already have. Whoa, look at that, 62 bushels, and right here around the edge of the field, dadgum, 65. I sure wish I had more than 140 acres of beans because, well, I think I got these contracted for somewhere between 13, 14 bushels an acre. We're talking about some pretty nice money. Well, it didn't take long to get the first hopper full. We just working on first pass around this big bottom, and my average yield sitting on 55 bushels an acre. For the very first pass, tree lines and thin areas and everything else be 55 bushels. That's pretty extraordinary. Once we get out there, that average is going to continue to go up. Anyway, we're getting a little late start on cutting beans today. Andy had to haul off 2 loads of the soybeans that we cut yesterday on Sunday to the river, and Kelly and I spent the morning defoliating some more cotton. We put our second shot a defoliant on our earliest field of cotton. It was first sprayed last week, and then got another couple loads sprayed out of first shot defoliant on some more of our cotton. So that cotton's getting ready. That really warm into September, beginning of October, did wonders for our cotton crop. It's still not 100% mature and ready to defoliate, but considering where it was in late May with having to do all that replanting, and then kind of had a very cool first half of June, the cotton crop looks absolutely amazing. It's going to turn out about as good as I possibly could have hoped for, considering what it went through early season. Don't know if we're going to have a record cotton crop. Still a lot to be determined. I know there's a whole lot of bolls out there, but whether we can get all of those bolls opened up and get it harvested, that still remains to be seen. Oh, look at 70 bushels an acre on these short beans on top of this knoll. Man alive. But yep, that cotton harvesting getting real close. That first field that we defoliated, that we put the second shot on today, probably about a week from now, it's going to be real close to being ready to pick. Unfortunately, I still don't have my cotton picker yet. It's been down to Tennessee Tractor since the middle of August, and that's kind of what I was worried about with it when they weren't able to get to it when they thought they were going to be able to get to it. Like, well, y'all going to be working on it during harvest, and well, we know what happens during harvest. Everybody's out in the field. Everybody's got stuff breaking down. They got people calling in, hey, I need a service call, come fix this, come fix that, and that's exactly what happened. They got everything fixed on my picker. It is ready to go to the field, but they haven't had a chance to finish all that preventive maintenance that I was wanting done, namely a lot of those bearings in the baler parts. So hopefully they'll be able to get on it this week and get it completely finished up. I'd feel a lot more comfortable. Good thing I took it down there, because they found a really serious problem with that picker that wasn't aware of, and they didn't actually find it until they went to go changing the fan belts. But anyway, there's some kind of drive shaft up under there that drives the fan belts, and anyway, the housing where it goes to the gearbox, all the bolts had broken off into that gearbox, and that drive shaft was just kind of hanging there and flopping and only supported on one end, and it was right at the point of probably about to do some major damage to a gearbox, and no telling what else up underneath that. So thank God I took it down there, and thank God they found that, because that would have been a pretty bad deal right there. But yeah, I'm hoping that they get the thing finished up later this week. We get done cutting our 140 acres of beans, get our cover crops planted behind the beans, and then we'll be able to go down there and pick it up, bring it home. We've also got to pick up all of our wrap and bring it home, and then got to figure out how to get all that wrap loaded in the baler part, and making sure I understand how all that works, running water through the system and pumping the grease tank full, getting the heads greased. There's going to be a pretty steep learning curve with this machine, and the last thing I want to do is go pick it up at John Deere, and the very next day we got to go straight to the field and start picking cotton. I'd like to have 2 or 3 days at the shop just to refresh my memory on the machine, study the owner's manual and all the procedures and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I had 7-8 hours of operating one late last fall, but all I did was just operate the machine, which is fairly simple. The getting it prepared part and making sure everything's dialed in like it needs to be, that's always going to be the big question mark. Look at this real weedy area, 70 bushels. Man, we're going to dang near have a semi truckload by the time we get done with the inroads of this big bottom.
Looks decent enough. So this is day 23 that we've worked in a row since harvest started, and I just feel completely like and we got like 2 more months to go. So if I can't put sentences together now, pretty much gonna be brain dead in 2 weeks before we even start cotton. So I'm doing my best and I'm trying. It's been rough and there's no break in sight. So it's the first year in a really long time that we have worked this long and haven't taken a day off. And we're a lot older than we used to be. So gonna hope that we can catch up and maybe get a day just to sit at the house and do nothing, because that's what we all need. Well, at least I know I do.
All right, first pass out through the middle. Looks like we in the 80s. I'll take it. Oh, over 90, 95. Come on, let me see those triple digits. Ah, I didn't quite make it. Those are the kind of numbers make you smile. I tell you what, there ain't much prettier thing than corn when it's tasseled out and growing. There ain't nothing prettier than a cotton field when it's ready to be picked. And about the only time soybeans actually look good to the eye is when the field is cut and you got a nice manicured field there with no residue sticking up. To me, soybeans are one of the ugliest crops to grow, even if they are profitable. But the only time I really feel good about them is when I'm looking at those numbers on the yield monitor and got a nice clean cut path through there.
Well, we went from defoliating cotton to cutting beans. I hauled off some custom harvest beans first thing this morning. It was 2 loads to Dyersburg, but now we are cutting our own beans, so I've got to get the grain bins ready and my pit open and make sure all my doors on my bins are shut. So let's get to doing that. So we have corn in bin 1, bin 4, and bin 3 way back there. And we are putting soybeans into bin 2 here. So what we're gonna do is just go around and make sure all these doors are turned clockwise, just like that. I don't have to check 4 here because it's got a secondary loop going to it, but I'm just gonna make double sure because the secondary loop that it's alright, that one is shut. The secondary loop that I was just saying that's going to bin 4, it is coming off of bin 2, and that's the ones we're putting beans in. So alright, bin 3 is shut, bin 1 is shut, and bin 4 is shut. So we should be good to start dumping some beans. And I'm gonna start out just how we did on corn. I'm gonna start out slow, make sure our spinner's working, and make sure it's all going into the right bin. And I guess make sure number 2 is open here too. Alright, we've got our slow flow going, so let's wait a couple minutes and hopefully by the time I walk over here they'll be dumping in the bin. Well, we're not looking good so far. I don't see any beans going into bin 2. I don't really know where else they would be going. Let's just shut her up here. Alright, we got our flow gate shut. I'm gonna let it push out just a little bit longer. I see like 1 or 2 beans falling. There should be a couple more than that. So, back up the steps we go. Not very high of a walk here. I can hear them running through the pipe. Oh boy. I feel like this means a bird nest or something has been a bird nest in right here. So hopefully not, but that's what we're checking right now. Well, I didn't bring any tools up here, but you can hear that. You should know what that sound is. There is no hollowness in here, so this is full of, oh boy. Oh, it looks like a bunch of corn. Yay. So we've got a little bit of a problem. Whew. I'll see y'all back up here when I have some wrenches. All right, we made it back to the top. We got our wrenches, and since I'm by myself and I am about 50 feet in the air, 40 feet in the air or something like that, I decided to grab the safety harness, and just in case, you just never know. So now we can get started taking these apart, get covered in corn dust. Oh boy, it's trying to come down on its own. That means it's gonna be pretty nasty, pretty full. Now it's the for real moment of truth. Let me scoot y'all up a little bit. Well, that's kind of nasty. There's a dead mouse right here. Well, I just took a nice bean bath there, so there goes a couple bushels. But why are we all clogged up here? Now that I'm looking at it, I believe, oh man, I believe I'm supposed to keep bin number 4 open. We're gonna put these bolts on back through here now, and go open bin 4, I guess. Or freaking try again. So that was my fault. I did not know you didn't do that. Alright, so to fix that, what we're gonna do is reopen this one. I believe that just fixed the problem. That was the crossover from bin 2 to bin 4. And I mean, you can tell in the last clip, I thought it would have been better for it to be closed. So it is not. Now we can go back to dumping beans. Well, we got all that situated. Now we're officially dumping beans into bin 2.
Well, we got about half of this big field done, and yields are doing real good. I mean, there's a whole lot of 80s and some 90s. I actually topped 100 bushels a few times, but overall it's just a little bit less than what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting to see so many 70s like we just saw, but I definitely still think that our better beans are ahead of us. But I mean, overall, say our field average is sitting on about 75. That sure ain't nothing to complain about. That's some mighty fine beans. It's up there with, you know, some of the best field averages I've ever had. I think I've had a couple fields go right around 80 before, several years ago. That's back when I was experimenting with some with side dressing some beans with nitrogen. So overall, to have really low input beans averaging the mid 70s, that's a pretty serious money maker there. And again, just like with our corn, I mean, we're not shooting for the moon. We are not high management, putting a lot of inputs, trying to get every single bushel out of these beans. We're trying to make high yields with low inputs. You know, reasonable yields that can be, you know, expected year after year, and not, you know, really increase our risk by having a ton of money tied up in the crop. And overall, I'd say we definitely succeeded. And I'll go ahead and tell you the secret to making high yielding beans. And guess what? It don't cost you a penny. There's not one single input that you can put on here that's going to make as big of a difference as planting early and maximizing how much sunlight that the soybeans can intercept. You know, we switched things up a little bit this year. We planted our soybeans before we planted our corn because plant conditions for corn just were not quite favorable enough. And from our experience, soybeans do a better job of coming up in cooler soils than what corn does. So we went ahead and planted our beans, and man, it has paid off. Every year that we've managed to get our beans planted real early, I mean, they're up there with the highest beans we've ever made before. Yeah, I think we started planting these, April 21st, 22nd, something like that, which is right in line when I want to plant late group 4s, because we're trying to time up the maturity of them to where they start blooming about a week before the longest day of the year, which is June 21st. Now, there might be weather conditions come in and early planted beans might not yield good, but you know, that's based on stuff you can't predict. You don't know what the weather's going to be like. You don't know when the drought's going to hit or anything like that. But there's one thing you can count on. The sun is going to be in the sky for the longest period of time on June 21st. You know that's going to happen. And the biggest yield driver in soybeans is sunlight. You don't have sunlight, you're not going to make yields. There's no amount of fertilizer, no amount of any of these biostimulants or anything you can buy in a jug is going to make as big of a difference as getting sunlight on soybeans. You know, soybeans are one of those crops that, you know, everything that it does from a physiological standpoint is determined by how long the day is. So the more days you can have soybeans in the ground, setting nodes before that longest day of the year, or the day length triggers it to go into reproductive mode, gives you that many more fruiting positions on the plant to put pods. So for our latitude, late group 4, these are 4.8 maturities. You know, around that 3rd week of April is about the optimum time to plant beans. We plant later than that, first part of May. It's just not as going to have as many days and going to be able to intercept as much sunlight. Now, if we were to go earlier, you say an early group 4 or a late group 3, that very end of April, first week of May timeline is the optimum timeline to get them blooming, you know, right before June 21st. Now, of course, that's for West Tennessee and our latitude. You know, different latitudes, you go farther north, you know, that's going to change with a different type of maturities and the planting date. But figure out what planting date you need to have with what maturity you want to have to get them blooming, you know, a solid week before the longest day of the year. Now, that's not to say that an excellent fertility program and, you know, any other additives, you know, a fungicide and all these other good practices don't make a difference in high yielding beans, because they most certainly do. But they're not going to make as big a difference as sunlight. And all we did for these beans, we planted them early behind a good cover crop. We had a good herbicide program. Our fertility program, you know, we build up the nutrients in our soil. We got really good fertility on this farm. We're still trying to build up the potash to a 5% base saturation, but we're getting real close. And then we sprayed them with a fungicide, and we had timely rains. And this, you know, there's no other extra additives, you know, no other snake oils in a jug or anything like that. You know, this is what good, sound agronomics is capable of getting you. Is it going to win contest? I don't know, but I think there's a good chance of, if there was a contest for maximum profit off of a piece of ground, I'd put these up there with anybody's. And not only will earlier planted beans yield more from more sunlight, they'll also be a little bit shorter. You know, one of the biggest yield limiting factors that we deal with is you plant beans later into a lot better conditions. You know, they want to grow too much vegetatively. They won't have too much distance in between nodes. They want to get too tall. And then what happens when they get too tall? Well, then they start to get down when they start to set pods, which really limits yield. But if you plant beans early, the distance in between nodes is going to be a lot closer, and your beans will be a little bit shorter. The pods will be stacked a lot closer together, and they'll be a lot more likely to still be standing straight up whenever you harvest them. Now, the ones out in this field, for the most part, are standing up real good. There's a few spots because we had some pretty good storms come through in August with some high winds. They had a lot of weight on them, and it didn't blow them flat on the ground, but it got them to where they was leaning pretty hard. Uh-oh, got a little bit of cab soybeans. me see, but Andy's heading off with his third load, and considering we didn't start till like 1:30, right at 50 acres done. I was hoping to get done with this farm today so we get moved to the next one. I've got my soybean yield competition coming tomorrow, but I just called the extension agent. He said he's pretty flexible on timing, so it's getting dark. These things, these beans starting to get tough. We had to slow down quite a bit. Plus, I got a little work to do on the combine tonight. I forgot to adjust the vanes on my rotor. They're still in the slow position where we have them for corn, which means that the crop makes another a couple revolutions around the rotor before it's ejected into the chopper. And with soybeans, we don't need that, and all it does is it just takes more power and keeps the crop in there longer and over threshes it, and hurts combine performance, which we've definitely noticed. These soybeans still got green stems in them and been tough going. Plus, power wise, I don't have quite the power that I usually do. Normally when this thing is pulling a lot of power, when it's running above 100% engine load, it's building around 50 to 55 psi boost on the turbo, and today it's been 42, 43, 44, 45 psi boost, so not building the turbo boost that it needs. And that's either one of two things. Either we got a fuel supply problem, which shouldn't be the case because we got brand new fuel filters on here, or we got an air leak after the turbo going to the intercooler or something like that. So I'll do a little diagnosing on it tonight while I'm nasty and itchy, got soybean dust on me, rather than trying to do it first thing in the morning when I'm clean. So, but overall, yields have been maintaining pretty good. If you look at my yield map here, anywhere you see dark green is over 90 bushels an acre. So, field average sitting right there, 74, 75. But you can tell, you see all the way around the end rows, that all the way around the end rows killed my average, just like it does on every other crop and every other farm. Especially on this farm, because we got perhaps the worst deer pressure out of all our farms on this farm. I done talked to the landowners, and they say they're going to try and help me out some this fall on the deer problem. I told them, well, shoot all the does you see. But yeah, this whole, almost all these fields are surrounded by a good tree line or woods. Even though the fields are big, there's plenty of deer off of them woods. And about this time of evening, all throughout the summer while the crops are growing, they're venturing out there in the edge of the field and nibbling on the soybeans. So it's just a problem that's just continuing to get worse and worse and worse for us. We're going to do something about these deer at some point. But I just about got a bin full. We're going to go up here and do a little wrenching. Well, now I do have a bin full. We're going to go up here and do some wrenching on this combine and see if we can improve the performance a little bit better.